I'm gonna show you the basics of brining. So this is Brining 101. This is using a little bit of science to get the most out of your meat. Because what brining does is it captures moisture within your proteins. So it doesn't matter if it's chicken, pork, or brisket, or another cut of beef. Brining knowledge is like power on the grill, basically. You need a big bucket. You need a container that's large enough to take your protein and the brine itself without overflowing. That's kind of important. You need 1 cup of kosher salt. Not all kosher salts are equal. So you might want to do a little bit of experimentation with the kind of kosher salt you're going to be using. 1/2 cup of brown sugar, a couple tablespoons of peppercorns, and honestly, it is as easy as this. You take all of the salt, sugar, and peppercorns, you pour it in your bucket. If you're doing a lot of brining at home, make up brine packs ahead of time. I do it every year. I actually sit down and I make 20 to 25 of these every single year. And that way it's always ready and it's always available. And you know that that little bag just has to go with 1 gallon or 8 cups of water. So we're gonna add just a little bit of water. Stir, 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 until every granule is like kind of, melded into the water. Basically, you wanna melt that sugar and that salt into this brine. You can heat this brine up completely, but then you have to wait for it to cool down. And I think it's just a pain in the butt to do that. So I always do it cold water. It just takes a little bit of stirring. It's not a big deal. So now we add the rest of our water and give it another little stir. That's it. You've just made your first basic brine. At that point, you can decide to just go with a basic brine, or you can add some aromatics. You can add allspice berries. You can add herbs like rosemary. It all depends on what your end product wants to be. So just take your whole chicken, pop it in there. So a basic rule of thumb for all brining is 1 pound per hour. So if you've got a whole chicken that's 5 pounds, you should probably brine for 5 hours. However, if you've got smaller pieces of chicken, a good rule of thumb is just a couple of hours overall, because they may be a little bit smaller, but there's a lot of them in the bucket. Very key importance on food safety. This brine has to be kept in the fridge with your protein in it. You can't leave this on the countertop. So you need to take this whole container and make sure you have a place in your fridge that's large enough to accommodate it. If you have a protein that's kind of sticking up and it's bobbing up and down, all you have to do is put a plate in there and press it down. It's a super easy tip to make sure your protein stays under that brine for the duration that you need it to be. So once it comes out of the brine, what you want to do is you just want to pat the surface dry. Don't rinse it off. You've already just, worked really hard to get that brine in there. Pat it off and then continue with your regular seasoning program. For more tips, tricks, and great recommendations for barbecue and grilling, make sure you subscribe to our channel. This recipe and so much more are still coming.